All right, welcome back to From the Brink. I am your host today, Paul Dehlinger. Hosting with me, Colby Reynolds
Howdy.
and Clay Grossman.
Howdy, what's going on?
In this episode, we talk about Kamala Harris's recent VP pick, the recent downturns in the stock market, as well as some unforced errors by the Trump campaign. Clay, do you want to start us off? What's been going on with the Trump campaign over the last couple weeks?
Yeah, well, we're recording this on August 10th. Now about 2 weeks since the Kamala Harris Joe Biden flip the DNC, and I think the general feeling since the Kamala Harris swap in was that we've been kind of on the back burner. They found lines of attack on JD Vance. However effective they will obviously be remaining to tell. Trump's made a few comments in here that obviously pick up media attention. Go figure with that. And so the feeling has generally been that we've been on the back burner, and there's been a lot of, I would say, buyer's remorse almost with the JD Vance pick in the last 2 weeks. But that being said, it's still very early to tell on the polling data how close we are going to be looking this race. I mean, I don't think there's enough data to say how well people know Kamala. And of course, she hasn't taken an interview. And of course, there's now a debate coming up in September. So still a long way to tell at this point, but just generally, we've been having some unforced errors on our side of the aisle, and hopefully, this new Tim Walz news will kind of give us some new breathing life into our movement here. So,
Yeah, Colby, what do you think of the Tim Walz pick?
I I think I heard his name in passing once or twice before this, since he's been governor of Minnesota for a while. He was talked about in the Follow Minneapolis documentary about his reaction to the George Floyd riots up there. I It seems pretty illogical, given if they're trying to grab as many votes as they want, given how he's run Minnesota. I think a general consensus was that maybe Governor Shapiro would have been a good idea to try to gather more votes. But we can talk about why they didn't take Governor Shapiro here in a few minutes if y'all want.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a good segue now. I mean, I have, I guess, the same opinion as y'all. I mean, I think it's even more extreme, just because, I mean, even just forget all of his crazy left wing behavior. I mean, he doesn't help her with the state. Like, I mean, if she's worried about Minnesota, it's doomed. She doesn't balance out the ticket really in any way other than looking like a generic older white guy. Which, I mean, to that topic, he's like only like a couple months older than her, but he looks like he's 80.
Really?
He does not look well.
Is he? Is he considered DEI hire?
Yeah, I guess.
yeah, no, the Walz pick is it's not as much as a slam dunk as I think people on the right make it out to be, but it does open up some lines of attack. The only things that Tim Walz was really known for nationally are of course, the Minneapolis riots and his COVID response. The question will remain is, does this election become a verdict on that, or a verdict on whatever crazy thing Trump had said that week, or a verdict on how out of touch JD Vance is? Time will really tell on that one, but I would say, if you're grading it, you would give it like a C. I think the obvious answer would be that Mark Kelly or Josh Shapiro would have been A picks. So I'm curious the rationale that went into this. I'm curious what the thinking was, and if this does come back to bite Kamala, it will be definitely one of the more seminal moments in this year's election.
Well, I mean, there's an obvious thing we can talk about. I mean, Shapiro is Jewish, with last name like Shapiro, kind of gives it away. But yeah, I mean, I think, well, and he's also, I guess fairly pro-Israel. But I guess the thinking from the Harris campaign was that a Shapiro pick would alienate a lot of her, far left base, the Hamas crowd, as Ben Shapiro likes to call. And I mean, I guess that's a legitimate concern. I just don't think. Look, I mean, those people are already mad enough over the Biden administration's response to Israel, so they're going to vote for you or they're not. I don't think Shapiro picks can make that big of a difference.
I will say I do feel like in general, if the Democrats had some guts, they would have picked Shapiro. They would have probably had some issues at their convention. I think that was, I mean, going to be likely, but they probably would have lost some Hamasnik voters. But at the end of the day, I would think who is going to be more likely to come home with Trump on the ballot in this case, moderates in the Midwest or Hamasnik voters. I just can't shake the idea that they would have lost hundreds of thousands of votes by picking Shapiro versus what they would have gained by, again, carving into Trump's 2016 crowd the way Biden did in 2020. And Shapiro made the most logical sense behind that. So I think it demonstrates a lack of fear, or a fear on the Democrat side. And I think it shows that there are real radicals on their side of the party that they're willing to bend an ear to.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of trying to pivot to the center is proving that you're willing to anger your flank, and this would have been a perfect opportunity to show like, hey, I'm willing to stick it to the far left progressives to appease moderates. I mean, say what you will about Trump, but I mean, he's clearly been doing that on the right. Like, I don't know if you heard, but he was kind of throwing over Heritage under the bus, saying,
what's Project 25? Nobody's read Project 25 or something like that. That was
well, and he was saying, the left's got our crazies, or the left's got their crazies, like the too far left, and then we got ours on the right. They're too far right.
Yeah,
he gets trying to position himself as a common sense person. And now you can say, it doesn't show a lot of integrity, but I mean, as far as politicians go, that's a pretty good way to kind of signal to everybody like, hey, I am, distancing myself from the far right. I'm trying to stick to the center, which, I think smart politics.
Yeah. Because that's what Biden did in 2020. He tried to appear as the moderate, especially in the primary stage of the Democrat, because Harris was the very far lefty in that one. And
Bernie. And Sanders.
And Bernie. And Biden was like, compromise, Constitution.
Yeah, I think this, and I don't want to be the cliche right winger who criticizes the media, but I think that there is a little bit of egg on their face at this point. I mean, the last 2 weeks we've had nothing but JD Vance couch memes, and we've had nothing but Trump's comments on Kamala's ethnicity versus what should be one of the biggest political scandals in American history. Why is Joe Biden being allowed to serve? I can't. It baffles the mind that they have not been able to have their feet held to the fire on this one by anyone. I think it's we're at 30 days now that Kamala has not sat down for an interview, and I would be surprised if she does it in the next 2 weeks before the debate. So I'm very upset with our media establishment. Go figure. And I mean, I think it baffles the mind that you were talking about some things that are frankly not super relevant with the JD Vance pick, and instead we're talking about that instead of talking about how big of a scandal the Democrats just had.
Yeah, I mean, and we can go into some of the things both Vance and Trump have said in a second, but yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, neither Harris or Waltz have been answering any questions. I mean, yeah, Harris has a lot of stuff to answer for not only her role in the Biden administration and Biden's record, but also, whether, Biden is still confident enough to serve. But also Waltz has some stuff to answer. I mean, he's got some, some baggage. I mean, we can talk about stuff we care about, like some of his far left policy, like his response to the 2020 riots. I mean, one thing he was, mandated that they put tampons in boys' bathrooms to,
I forgot about that.
Trans actives. But I mean, he's got some stuff to answer for his service. I don't know if y'all heard, but
I've only seen the headlines. What's he catching flack about?
So he served in the National Guard for I think like 24 years. And then when his unit was told that they might be brought up to serve in Iraq, he and I don't know if resigned his commission is the right word, but he went ahead and took retirement, which I mean, I should specify he was totally legally in his right to do. But
24 years, that's way over the.
Yeah, but a lot of people just it rubbed him all the wrong way, especially in
Yeah.
his unit. They kind of thought he abandoned his unit when he heard they might have to serve. And also the way he's portrayed his service. I mean, I was listening to how National Review described it, and he says a lot of things that I guess are technically correct, but just kind of give the misimpression that he served in combat. He said he he's I mean, one his like earlier campaigns actually did say he served in combat, which just wasn't true. I think. Well, I mean, I know it's not true, but I think that's what they said. But I'd have to look that over. But he phrases like, "I served in support of Operation Enduring Freedom," but his support was like his unit was in Italy during Afghanistan. So
Okay, interesting.
Combat.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that's technically true, but it would give him this impression that he was in combat. And he also, said when he's talking about gun control, is like, I don't want weapons that I used in war to be allowed to be bought in this country. It's like, well, you never really served in war, and also an AR-15 has never been used in any American war. So that's another thing. They use M16s or M4s.
Yeah, I believe in his first campaign, he called himself a combat veteran, like his first congressional campaign. And maybe it was 2006 or so. So yeah, there is a lot of backing, and I think it will play very well from the JD Vance crowd, who, well, JD Vance literally did serve in Iraq. So it'll be interesting to see. And like I say, I think if we lived in a normal timeline, they would be getting their feet held to the fire. But normal timeline we do not live in, and I'm curious to see how this shakes the next few weeks.
The only thing I would say, the only thing I would say is like the Trump campaign should probably stick to JD Vance bringing up this line of attack. I think coming from Trump, it's going to be a little hollow, given his history with avoiding the Vietnam draft, claiming he had bone spurs.
You mean to tell me you think Trump's gonna avoid attacking Tim Walz over this?
I don't know. I think it would be smart too.
He just talked crap about Brian Kemp again. He's been doing that for 4 years now. So no, that I would say it's a smart move for Trump to stay away from that one. But like I say, there's plenty of ammunition here. Like I say, there was already enough baggage on Kamala's side of things. I think it was already a questionable decision to keep her on the ballot, and to go with Tim Walz, it opens the door for a lot of, like I say, a lot more negative press than I think they needed. So it'll be curious to see. I'll be curious to see how it plays out. Another thing is abortion. Tim Walz and Minnesota have the most pro-abortion laws in the state or the country. So they should hold their feet to the fire on that one. They should hold their feet to the fire on some of the weird progressive policies being put out by Minnesota. And certainly they should hold their feet to the fire on the bad record of the Biden-Harris administration. So,
I'm sorry, you go, Paul.
No, I was just saying, Colby, what's your thoughts on Waltz's history?
I think, I don't know. I think he's, like Clay said, he should be held accountable for all the really awful policies in Minnesota. His service issue, it does sound like he tried to word that he served in combat. I forget if our base in Italy, what they did during Enduring Freedom. I'm sure we have flights going there, but I'm not sure exactly what the unit station there did. Yeah. Do y'all, on the fact of picking Walz again, do y'all see any chance in this swinging some of the Rust Belt, like Great Lakes area voters? Because I really don't.
Yeah. So Colby, if you look at Walz's elections in 2018 and 2022, there's this misconception that he actually carved into rural white voters in a significant way. Where he gained the most traction, and it makes complete sense, is in the suburbs of St. Paul and Minneapolis, and in those, which to that end is not a bad electoral strategy for the Kamala Harris. If they can again just keep a solid lead with suburban voters, I do think that this will narrow the Trump that pathway to victory. He can win every rural county in the Midwest and still lose if he loses enough suburban voters, just because of how the map is going to break down. So it's not an F. I think a lot of people on the right have unfairly labeled it as that,
Mhm.
because a lot of the attacks on walls are 2020 related. People are going to talk about Minneapolis. I think those are probably the strongest attacks, or COVID response. But as we saw with the Ron DeSantis campaign, first of all, and sort of the revisionism around Trump, the COVID lines, 2020 lines, are just not resonating. People have memory hold it so greatly. So that if you think about it in that vein, where Tim Walz is weakest, I don't think people are going to care as much as they normally would have.
So would you go after the pretty radical school policies and other stuff like that?
That's what if you're a smart campaign pundit, you would attack them as being radical. You would attack them as being flip-floppers. You would show the video of Kamala talking about banning fracking 100 times. You would play the clip of Tim Walz just last week talking about how great socialism was. You would play all of that on repeat, and Trump would say as little as possible in the meantime, and let campaign surrogates speak for him, and he would have a debate with Kamala, and that would be about it. I would think that would be the smart strategy moving forward in this new timeline.
Yeah, and I guess before we switch to the Trump campaign, the last thing I'll say is there was a lot of other factors I think that led to her picking Walz over Shapiro. Apparently, Shapiro has some enemies in the Democratic Party that think he's a little too ambitious. So I guess it just came down to this pick. It didn't hurt her momentum, which I think we can all say the Harris campaign has some momentum. They've had a pretty good 2 or 3 weeks of news cycles. So I would say
donations, a lot of good donations.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah, they've been raising a ton of money. I would say before the Walz pick, I had her chances up as high as they've ever been. I would say it was maybe 55-45 in her favor. Now I'm back to it's a pretty even race. It's 50-50 with this, pick. And I mean the Trump campaign has a like their high was right before he picked JD Vance, and then it's like I said, been a series of unforced errors, which I guess we can go into now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's start with, I guess, JD Vance. I guess it resurfaced that on Tucker Carlson, he made a joke about, I think it was about the child tax credit, right? Is like his argument for it was, we're basically, instead of saying it's going to help working families, he kind of made it seem as like a punishment to people without kids, and he, specifically named childless cat ladies.
Yeah. Well, this was always going to happen, Paul, with the JD Vance pick. I mean, JD does have a habit of saying things. This is he's a real fire eater, and you get Trump from the Trump camp's perspective. You get someone that is going to be ride or die, that is going to be very strong, probably generate a lot of the base support again. But the flip side is you're going to have to be accountable for questions like this. I mean, look, is he right on this particular issue? Yes. Was the phraseology very good in that particular moment? Is that someone that I think you would say is a politically smart move to say? No, the answer is absolutely not. But it goes to show that we're going to get that coverage instead of answering Tim Walz or talking to Kamala about that for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Colby, what's your thought on the childless cat ladies?
I think he's right. It honestly sounds like something I let slip. Relatable. But yeah, I think it also just shows how ingrained the media is. If they won't shut up about this, and like Clay said, they're not holding Harris or Walz's feet to the fire. And we've known this for years. We've known how ingrained and I guess the term establishment media, it's been. I kind of lean. I kind of lean the media is the most powerful force in this country. I'm going to be honest.
I mean, I think if that was true, we wouldn't have had 4 years of Donald Trump. So
yeah.
I will say one other thing about the media in this particular case. I think there's been a perception just based off of the childless cat ladies that there's going to be a raise of taxes on people who have childless who are childless, which is not true whatsoever. And the fact that they're trying to take tax credits, which is the biggest boon for conservatives, it just shows how willing they are to lie and spin in this particular case. So yeah, I mean it should not have been a scandal. It should not have been a scandal of this magnitude, but it was still an unforced error. And like I say, if you picked someone like Burgum or someone that has very little name recognition right now, you would be in a much better position than you are right now. So time will tell. I think the next two seminal moments you're looking at are the DNC, and you are looking at the first debate, which I believe is a month today on September 10th.
Yeah, I think you're right. What are we looking to get out of the first it's not the first, but the DNC? Because the only thing I can think you could get out of that influence the campaign would be, I don't know, some good speech or something.
Yeah, well, historically, you do get a campaign boost after the DNC, so or your political convention. So, if Kamala is tied right now, she may come out of the DNC with a 3 or 4 point lead, and then the ball is really on the Trump campaign because 2 weeks after that you're looking at or 3 weeks after that you're looking at the debate, and if Trump can replicate his performance against Biden, or if he stumbles and we get more 2020 Trump, I think that will be a very telling sign for how the election is actually going to play out, because we're now getting to a point where it's a lot closer to tell, and actually make accurate predictions. So
Yeah. Well, and I want to go back to the media part. I mean, I guess I don't disagree, but I'm just saying if we all know that the media is going to be unfair to Republicans, that just means it's a greater responsibility to not make, mistakes like this and not to give them ammunition. I mean, I think we all wish the media cared more about policy than rhetoric, but I mean, we don't live in that world. It's like rhetoric is important.
Rhetoric doesn't get you clicks.
Well, no, rhetoric does.
Policy doesn't get you clicks. Sorry, that's what I meant.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, we're just, that's, I mean, and I think this election is going to come down to that more than anything. It's going to come down to vibes, which I hate saying, but it's probably true. Who can, give off the vibes that they're more moderate? I mean, I would, my gut says, Trump, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, like I say, it's going to be, like I say, we're still testing the waters and all. This is still a very fresh, timeline, and things are still moving rapidly. I mean, you would say, what is it, less than a month still that Trump has been sort of the assassination attempt, and It seems like that's already been kind of forgotten, and now it already feels like we've kind of forgotten the debate and how bad Biden was. So versus an ever-changing political landscape, I'm curious how the next few weeks are going to play out. It's going to be, I mean, this will continue to be the most interesting election of our timeline, and it'll be interesting to see how much the unforced errors from the Trump campaign will actually have an impact on this election.
Well, and I think during our last episode, we were our biggest worry from the Trump campaign would be that he would attack Kamala Harris from the left on crime, accuse her of locking up young minorities over, things like marijuana. And, well, I guess we could say he didn't do that. He didn't use that line of attack. Right now, the Trump administration, or Donald Trump, is in hot water for basically attacking Kamala Harris on whether or not she's Black or Indian. Colby, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I remember years ago when she was nominated as VP, there were headlines both saying Harris is the first Indian American vice president candidate, and Harris is the first Black American vice president candidate, stuff like that. So I think he has some ground, but I don't think he should have said it because it doesn't really help the campaign at all.
Okay, well, I would definitely agree with that. Clay, what's your thought on it?
I'm sorry, Paul. Could you repeat the question real quick?
On Trump's attack of Kamala Harris's ethnicity.
Oh yeah, I mean it will not help at all. It'll obviously play to the MAGA crowd that I mean, everything Trump says just about plays to that crowd. So it's not winning him votes, and it certainly could lose him votes. But at this point, everything is just so baked into the cake that I really can't see that having too much of a mainstay. Now, if he makes I don't know, if he continues to make that a campaign theme, that would be obviously detrimental. Like I say, they just need to stick to issues. This needs to be an issues election, not a base election. This needs to be a imagery thing. He needs to define Kamala Harris and not define her as a race flip flopper, even though it is objectively true that she has, and a little bit of that is also the media is doing. They care a lot about the first of anything, so that's why they would say that's why she's the first Indian American, for example, Attorney General or whatever, that becomes relevant, right? So again, it's more so on the media at that point, but. Still, that being said, if Trump makes this a mainstay of his campaign, it will not win him enough votes, and it will definitely alienate enough people he needs to win.
Yeah, I mean, okay, as the resident anti-Trump person on the podcast, let me. If I was going to try to steelman this, I would say that Trump sees that he's making gains with black men, so he's carving into that demographic. So he thought, okay, something that would carve deeper into that would be to bring up the fact that Kamala Harris is willing to use her blackness when it's convenient, and then subjugate that to her Indianness when that's more convenient, and maybe that would rub some black voters the wrong way. I think there's very few people that's probably true, or that's going to be relevant with. So yeah, I would say it was probably a mistake, but I think it's probably what his logic was. I mean, it just seems foolish though, just because she's mixed race. Like I don't know what the Trump campaign wants to.
I will say, I think it's very unlikely that Kamala is going to generate, even before this, that she was going to generate the turnout that Barack Obama did in 2008 and 2012 for minority voters,
or even Joe Biden. I mean,
or even Joe Biden. Yeah, I think it's just very unlikely that would be the case. I think that the campaign themes have been a lot more in line with 2016 thus far. So I think it was if you were already down and you wanted to carve into that black voter support, it would have made a lot of sense. But if it's a razor thin election, you got to stick to your talking points and not make unforced errors, and not give any ammunition to the media, who seem hell bent on getting against Trump on this one.
Which is weird, because he's known this for years about the media being so anti him and going after him for everything. I remember right after he got into office, there was a headline, at some ball, Trump gets 2 scoops of ice cream instead of 1, and the media was freaking out about that. So I don't know why. We know he has no filter, and we know that for years. But
I think, Colby, they go hand in hand. I think Trump likes some of the media attention, negative or positive, and the media loves it because it's good for ratings. And they also hate Donald Trump, so anytime that they have any excuse to attack him, it's worthwhile for them. So it goes both ways, and you don't like to see it. I think it's probably been bad for the broader body politic, just in general. But that may be a conversation for a later day, maybe an after election podcast.
Yeah, and just back to this thing, like, just because the specific controversy about race probably doesn't hurt Trump that much, it just contributes to like a continuation of bad news cycles, which in the inverse is a continuation of good news cycles for the Kamala campaign. They have momentum, and then Trump has negative momentum, so it's just it forces all of his surrogates to have to, well, what do you think about Trump's most recent comments? And then they have to be on the back foot. And look, I mean, one of the demographics that Trump needs to hold is probably moderate suburban voters that he's been losing ground to, and they don't like having to defend this, like with their friends. There's like, oh, did you hear what Trump just said? And it's like, oh, yes. And now they have to come up with an excuse, like I just did. They have to still man that so you can justify voting for Trump. So yeah, like I said, it contributes to a bad news cycle, which is going to go on to our next topic. Trump decided to start attacking the popular Republican governor of Georgia. Clay, do you know what the attack was over? All I heard was he attacked him. I don't even know why.
Well, I think I don't even know what I really don't know what the nature of it was, but Trump has obviously hated Brian Kemp since 2020 because he presumes that he actually won the state of Georgia. So yeah, I mean, it's a bad move. Brian Kemp for a little while there was kind of in the hot seat, but I think he showed that he's a very effective operator, and he's defeated Stacey Abrams when he's been outfunded 5-1 now twice. I think Brian Kemp is probably more of the model Republican to base your campaign off of if you're wanting to win back Georgia, which is going to be a key state for you. So it makes no sense whatsoever. But then again, very little things that Trump does do make sense at the end of the day. Love him or hate him, that's just sort of the reality of the situation. So yes, it was a bad move. I think if we have a campaign that's 2020-esque, or he's talking about his 2020, how he actually won that election the entire time, it's going to be a loss.
Yeah, Colby, what's your thoughts on this line of attack?
I think it's obviously spurred by his response to the votes in Georgia in 2020. It's dumb. It doesn't get him anywhere. Did y'all think it could alienate Georgia even more?
Yeah, I would think so.
So yeah, I have no idea why he does that. I think he has legitimate complaints about what happened in Georgia. I don't necessarily think Brian Kemp is responsible, but yeah, so he shouldn't be just unloading on Brian Kemp over it.
Yeah, his specific comments where he called him a very bad guy, very average governor. He said he didn't want his endorsement. Like that's the real kicker there. Again, image matters on this one. And Trump can take it to his deathbed, frankly, that he won the 2020 election. But optically, if he were to go out and say, we've obviously had problems, Brian, and all this stuff, but I need your endorsement. I need, I would have been in lockstep with you. That would do a lot more. That would curry a lot more favor in, again, a key swing state like Georgia versus drumming up a same controversy that we've had to play out for 4 years now. So,
well, I think he attacked his wife too.
Yes. It's just bad politics at the end of the day. So,
could y'all see him just out of nowhere start swinging at Ted Cruz again at some rally? Lying Ted, and his wife about Mrs. Cruz.
Yeah, I mean, God, I think he is a little flustered with the mix or the change up between Biden and Harris, and so he goes back into I guess things he's more comfortable with, like complaining about 2020, and then weird attacks about ethnicity and on your own political allies. So
yeah, and I'll say one other thing about the Kemp line of attack is, if you're running, you're essentially running 50 campaigns due to your like having to rely on local parties and local officials. And so, yeah, the governor is a massively important office. The Georgia GOP, in spite of their organizational problems, it would be a great thing to have on your side, and frankly, everyone motivated and working for you. So, like I said, like how they did in 2022 by thoroughly defeating Stacey Abrams by 8 points, the same year that Trump's candidate Herschel Walker got obliterated. So, I mean, that's just bad. That's just good politics. That's the way I see it. And you know what? The Trump campaign, the hard Trump sycophants will never like that, but frankly, it boils down to who's going to come home at the end of the day, right? Is it going to be moderate voters that were maybe lenient towards Trump, but now see him as more favorable because of how badly progressive the Democratic ticket is? That I would like to see those voters come home because I'm pretty confident the Trump voters will come home. So
yeah, I think you're definitely right about that. Just for I would say people like me, this is bringing up 2020, attacking popular Republican governors is just kind of the things that would alienate somebody like me. So that's just my perspective on it. I think he should just kind of accept his loss on that. I know he won't, but and then say nice things about other Republican governors, especially popular ones.
Yeah, especially after, like I say, that everyone was saying, or Trump said, when Trump said, he was going to be a new unifying figure after the assassination attempt. I knew that it wasn't going to last long, frankly. It's just yeah. It's a nature of the beast, man, and I get why people like Trump because of that. Me personally, it's not for me, and I think it will hurt him. All of these unforced errors will hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I could see why people would have thought that after, because I didn't bring this up earlier, but yeah, he was doing everything he could have to sound more moderate. I mean, Daily Wire or Ben Shapiro even put up a video. He was actually defending the media after the assassination attempt. Like his crowd started booing the media and said, no, they, there's a lot of confusion after the assassination attempt. Nobody really knew what was going on. I was like, wow, he's throwing heritage under the bus, defending the media. He's definitely signaling he's in the middle. So I guess that didn't last. But for a second, you could see a new Trump.
Even then, I don't think the establishment media would have published him trying to be more moderate. Anyway, I never saw a headline them implying that he's going more moderate. It was, to be fair, it was all focused on at that time Biden dropping out and Harris getting in. But I don't believe the media would have the integrity to report on Trump sounding more moderate.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like how the populace perceives what they're saying about it. I mean, I don't expect MSNBC to have glowing articles about Trump, but I mean we always say the media. I mean, there's still a pretty big variation between an ABC or CNBC and a MSNBC or even CNN. But I guess we can kind of switch into some good news for the Trump campaign. I don't know about for the rest of the country, but there was a pretty large stock market sell-off a couple days ago. Nvidia, which is a pretty big chip company, was down 25%. Bitcoin took a major hit. One of our mutual friends was surprised that I was happy about this. And I'm like, hey, do you want to be able to buy a house or not? Like, now, I mean, I should say the market has gained most of these losses back in the following days. But I think this is a sign that the economy is slowing. This was in response to some pretty weak job numbers. So I think most people are thinking the Fed is going to cut rates here at the next Fed meeting. But Colby, Clay, what do y'all think about this latest stock market correction?
I think it's a long time coming. I've started to hear more layoffs in my own inner circles. Through my current job and through other people. So it's not surprising. I heard that the Japanese stock market had a hand in this, but
yes,
research on that. The banks in Japan did.
They raised their interest rates, and that obviously did not help the situation. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of investment in AI that has, it's really just a market correction at the end of the day. I think people are expecting there to be just massive boons that are just not realistic yet. So the market's gonna go back to a degree of normalcy, and then we're gonna have a more steady rate of growth here soon. And I think on the political side of this, there's a perception that this is a little bit vindicating. You look at poll data, people will say 60% of the country will say that the economy is bad or something like that. But in reality, you have record stock growths and the false image that the Kamala Harris campaign would like to present, that things are actually going very good. So it's for people on the right, there's a lot of vindication about it. But time will tell to see how much this actually does impact the growth and such this next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that you brought the Japanese into this conversation, Colby, because I actually looked up what the yen carry trade was, so I could sound smart on this podcast. But because the yen has been weak against the dollar for a long time, and Japan actually doesn't have inflation problem. They actually have deflation because it's a shrinking population.
Mhm.
But anyways, what a lot of people have been doing is they borrow yen, they convert it into dollars, and then they buy securities with it. Because securities have traditionally had a higher growth rate, so they make a profit on that, and then they convert it back into yen and pay off the debt. Now, like what Clay said, when Japan raised their interest rates, the yen strengthened against the dollar. So that whole system doesn't work if the actual value of the yen is worth more. And then so that just kind of triggered everything else in the cycle to have problems. So now securities are down, and so you're actually losing money instead of making money. Another thing that's kind of affected the weirdness of the stock market. A lot of investors are passive investors now, so they don't actually pick individual stocks. They just part of their paycheck or the 401k, it gets taken right out of their paycheck, and then they gets put into an ETF. So just buys the S&P 500 or the Dow, and so it's not really affected like what's happening in the market. It's just as long as there's people working, the stock market's going to keep going up regardless of fundamentals. And so people are thinking that's artificially kept some of these companies up, and once some of the actual active investors realize, I don't know, I don't feel great about this, there could be like a bigger sell-off. And as more of the boomers start retiring, they're going to start pulling money out of their 401k instead of contributing it to it. But we've actually had a couple of signals that have traditionally meant there's a recession, and it hasn't happened. The inverted yield curve has, it's been inverted, I guess, a couple of times this year, which means that I believe, let's see, short-term interest rates give a higher yield than long-term interest rates, that's usually a signal that people think the economy is not going to be good in the future. And even though the yield curve's been inverted, we haven't had a recession. And this newest one I learned about, the SOM rule, has been if the 3-month unemployment average goes up by 50 basis points, that usually means we're headed towards a recession. Well, we hit that, and most people don't think we're going to be in a recession, at least by the end of this year. So I guess all this just means is that we're in weird economic times. A lot of the traditional rules that people have gone by are no longer apply.
Could this be considered sort of a bubble? I guess not necessarily in any market, but just on perception.
Yeah, well, specifically in AI, like I think we're definitely in an AI bubble. I mean, the biggest company in the world by market cap was NVIDIA. They don't even make chips; they just design them, and they have TSMC, which is a Taiwanese company, make the actual chips, and then they sell them. But yeah, I mean, they're basically just printing money now with Microsoft and Apple buying these these very high end chips for AI. But yeah, I don't think that growth can continue. I mean, I've used all the AI. I mean, it's pretty useful, but I don't know if it's efficient enough for like an actual business to increase productivity. For me, it was just kind of cool to make designs for family crests and stuff.
Yeah, no, what I've been hinting at, or a lot of people have been hinting at, is that there's going to be, and when you have this many signs that things have been going on, and things have been going on like this for literally years now, there is a large, it seems like there's going to be a larger recession somewhere in the 2020s that kind of will be a reshaping political event for whoever is administration it falls through. It could be Trump. I mean, frankly, people will give him a ton of praise for the economy, but the fact is that there are powers outside of his control at this point. It could be Kamala. It could be somewhere further down the line. But yeah, there's too much instability in the market right now that points to a very large market correction that will probably also have a massive political ramification for whoever is in office at the time. So curious to see how that plays out, because like I say, this has been a very long time coming. So
yeah, and I mean, I've had people argue with me. They don't think or they think the Harris campaign can just push off market corrections to the Biden administration. I think it always resounds down to the party in power. So look, if we have a big stock market crash, or if everybody thinks we're in a recession come October, people are going to blame the Biden campaign, and by default they attribute that to Harris. I mean, Colby, what do you think?
I think rightly so. They should, with some of the steps the Biden administration has taken over the years. What was the statistic? We printed a quarter or half of all of our dollars in the first 6 months of Biden's presidency. Don't quote me on that. There's some giant statistic that was absolutely ridiculous. But what was your question? I just went on that.
No, it was just about, do you think a big stock market crash or bad unemployment numbers would redound to the Harris campaign? And I think it would.
Yes, especially with her ties to the Biden administration.
Yeah,
the steps they took. Yeah. Do y'all? So with the market, I'm not too well versed in the stock market. I took a stock market class in high school where we pretended to buy stocks and stuff. But if the market still grows, then why are we seeing pretty noticeable unemployment right now? Because I thought they were pretty hand in hand.
They used to be. I don't think anymore. I mean, like I talked about with passive investors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think the stock market's usually a leading indicator of bad news. So you start seeing a sell-off before you actually have a pretty bad unemployment. I will say, even though it was the weak unemployment or weak employment numbers, these are still traditionally pretty good numbers. Like, I think unemployment's at 4%. Now, don't get me wrong, it was lower during the first 3 years of the Trump administration, but traditionally those would be pretty good numbers.
What were they during the Bush administration? Because I know you can't really. It was the Obama administration had the slowest economic recovery, if I remember correctly. So unemployment was pretty significant. I remember through most of high school. It only kind of got better around 2015.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably fairly high at the beginning because of this, the tech bubble.
Mm-hmm.
It probably leveled off during the middle of his presidency, and then obviously it was really high during the end because of the great financial crash. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that contribute to having, a pretty good stock market, even when the rest of the economy is not great. I mean, you can see a lot of both Trump and Biden supporters, but people on X that comment about the stock market that don't actually own stocks. Like, you see a lot of comments like, "Oh yeah, we need Trump back in the office because my 401k misses Trump." And I'm like, the Dow is at an all-time high. It's over 40,000.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of things to criticize the Biden administration for, but don't say the stock market's in the toilet when it's getting close to all-time highs. But I think that's a good thing to segue to the end of this conversation. I think the Harris campaign definitely has some momentum. So what would y'all say her chances are going into the general? Colby, what would you put it at?
I'd still say 50-50, especially with the Walsh nomination. I like Clay's terminology, Trump's October surprise, that could shake things up. But right now, I think it's a pretty split, even race. And I think the debate could shift some things too, especially from the perception we see of previous Harris debates compared to Trump's most recent debate. If Trump can keep himself together, I think he could demolish Harris on stage, which will help him a lot.
Yeah, Clay?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to stick with Colby's answer. I'm a little more confident in the Kamala side of things. I think it's still 55-45 Kamala at this point. It's her race to lose. If she says nothing, does nothing, she will probably win this election. That's just how it is. The debate will be a very big telling moment. Will be one of the few that actually matter because no one actually knows who Kamala is on a national scale. The DNC will be a very telling time if like say there was protesters, if there was a bad convention, things of that nature. It would obviously impact herself so much. So the next month will be another another telling surprise, but as it currently stands, I would give the edge to Kamala at this point, ever so slightly.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still 50-50. I'm with Colby on this one. And I know people said like, oh, she can just do a basement campaign. I think you could get away with that during COVID. I think they're just ripping off this Band-Aid. I mean, she's already agreed to do a sit-down interview, at least one, this month. And yeah, she's gonna have to do a debate. So, if she's not had a little practice at this by then, yeah, she's just gonna get demolished, and then I mean, it's going to be too late to switch somebody out, so they're kind of stuck with her, and she's going to have less time to adapt and get better. So yeah, I mean, I would say Trump's, he's still got an even shot at winning this.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. What were you gonna say, Colby?
Has the Harris campaign done any rallies besides the one in Philadelphia last week since?
Yeah, they're doing rallies, I think, but they're all scripted. She hasn't done any interviews besides, like, I think she did like a 45-second. She took a couple questions coming off the plane. But yeah, no difficult questions.
Yeah, and I know we didn't get a chance to chat about this, but curious how the Senate election, Kamala's impact will impact clearly the John Tester race in Montana and Sherrod Brown. This is the first time that either of them have had to go up against a Republican candidate, a popular Republican candidate. Keep in mind, in 2012, they ran with Obama at the top of the ticket. 2006 was a blue wave year, and 2018 was a blue wave year. So curious how that will impact, how Kamala will impact the down ballot races. It's one of those things where there's not enough polling data to demonstrate how big of a shift we're talking about, but John Tester's favored to lose in his Montana Senate race, and Sherrod Brown is still favored to win in his Ohio Senate race. So kind of curious how that will impact the down ballot races. But yeah, just in general, I still give the edge to Kamala. I think you're right, Paul. You can't exactly run the same exact campaign that Joe Biden did in 2020. But you could certainly avoid taking questions. You could certainly avoid people having a better image of you. And especially if you're looking at your own voting base, you'd rather have everyone perceive what you are. So that would be for progressives to perceive Kamala as progressive, and for moderates to perceive Kamala as moderate. So time will tell on that one, but I do still give the edge to Kamala at this point.
Well, you brought up, the Ohio Senate race. Yeah, Sherrod Brown is trying to distance himself from the Harris campaign as much as possible. They asked him, like, oh, would you campaign with her? And he's like, she's going to do her thing. I'm going to do my thing.
Yeah, that'll be it. Like I say, there's a lot of good races this year. I think if we had been smarter on our pick in Arizona, we could also be talking about that one as a pickup as well. Nevada, the fundraising gap is just so big between Jackie Rosen and Sam Brown that you're very skeptical we could flip that one. And then the other three Rust Belt states are lean Democrat at this point. So yeah, this is one of those things where I think there could be some sort of a realignment in the Senate, but it's gonna be very hard just given the fact that this is a close to 50-50 race at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a better map for Republicans. We just, if we had better picks and a better person at the top of the ballot, I think, we could sweep this. But yeah, I would. Yeah, I think if we net 2 or 3, I think we should consider it a win.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, say, just Montana alone would be a win, and if we lost no other seats, that would be tremendous. But I think the goal should be Montana and Ohio at the very least.
Why are you conceding that that West Virginia is a pickup?
Oh yes, yes as well. So I mean that one is all but a given, I think, at this point. So yeah, if we pick up 3 seats there, I mean that would be again just a massive victory on that one. But it should be more. It should be Arizona. We should be talking about Arizona a lot more. We should be talking Michigan a lot more. But there's a lot of power factors at play on that one. So
I mean, like a great scenario would be like if we were talking about Maryland, with Hogan.
Yeah, well, it is actually interesting. There's not been a lot of polls, so they're kind of all over the place. Hogan was leading in the last poll that they did. But,
really?
Yeah. But again, it's still way too early to say. Then the last poll had him down by like 14 points. So that one could definitely be a real outlier of an event. But yeah, I mean, we could realistically be talking about that. I would not be shocked if that one actually was closer than people would give it credit for.
Interesting. Well, I think we could maybe attempt to go over light items again.
Well, we can't talk about Star Wars right now.
No, Blake. Well, okay. Has anybody here not want to talk about The Boys season 4? I know Clay, you've seen it. Colby, do you mind spoilers?
I haven't touched it. I think, did I describe that one scene I picked up a clip on YouTube a few years ago and just decided, no, I'm out. I'm bailing out.
Okay. So yeah, I think we could talk. I mean, I will say this newest season was kind of disgusting. Like I mean, yeah, it was pushed it to the bounds for me. If it gets any grosser season 5, I am going to be out.
Oh, so like actual, I guess, I don't know, grossness or
I mean, the nudity, the sexual reference is just it's a little much.
Yeah, I think you could have said that same thing about season 3. It was getting a little too gross, and then season 4 obviously upped the ante.
Yeah, so, I mean, that was like one episode though. For this newest season, it's like every other episode.
Yeah, no, for real. You got to keep people interested. I guess some people are interested in that. But yeah, no, my general take on season 4 was it was the exact opposite of season 3. Like season 3 was really good up until the conclusion, and season 4 was really mid up until the conclusion. So there's that. I'm excited for season 5. Fortunately, we're gonna have to wait another 2 years to see it. But my take on it was that they wrote it right after season 3, which would have been right around 2020, 2021. So that you can see the themes were kind of again not too dissimilar to the 2020 election. It's people don't resonate with the COVID narrative. They have obviously the virus as a big theme, and then people don't resonate with January 6th as much because again it's all faded news at this point. So kind of curious, kind of interesting to note the mirroring of that with our currently body politics. So and I am excited for season 5 though. That's gonna be nice to see.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this last time about how they had to change the name of the season finale because of the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. They changed it from Assassination Run to a season 4 finale. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Pretty mid-season with a pretty good finale. It seemed like the writers kind of didn't like that there were a lot of more right-wing people that enjoyed their show, so they kind of had to point out this season, like, hey, we really don't like you. I mean, the right was definitely the butt of the joke this last season, and I mean, it had always been a commentary on the right, but they had kind of always balanced it out by a critique of
Hollywood.
Yeah, well, Hollywood and specifically, PC. I mean, Vought's a terrible, horrible corporation, but they definitely, use diversity and LGBTQ to benefit their bottom line, and so it was a kind of a commentary on, that. But yeah, they were a little too on the nose this season. I mean, there was a reference to Mike Johnson, obviously, with one of the characters in season 4. I mean, one of the villains in it, they're meeting it at a Federalist Society meeting, which, I mean, they don't even have their thing straight. Like, they're really conflating like traditional Republicans who are definitely like cut spending.
Yeah.
I don't care about the poor with, Trump and MAGA and, populism, like, Christian nationalism is what as they call it.
I think that they also kind of mistook January 6th as Inauguration Day, where they made it seem like that was definitely the case. I'm like, guys, you guys know that he. By the way, who was the actual president during all of this? When Singer was not president. There was so many times where that was just such a glaring plot hole. I'm curious, like why that wasn't brought up ever.
Because they treat Bobby Singer, who is the president-elect, as the president, but I mean, they make it pretty clear that he's not the president. But even though, he's not the president, they're still taking him into the bunker during the assassination attempt. And he's also in charge of like the CIA for some reason. And then so in the scenario, the vice president gets killed, or the vice president elect gets killed, and the bad guys make it seem like the president was responsible for doing it. So the Republicans, I guess
Republicans pounce.
they either, I guess they don't, I can't, do they impeach him or do they?
The 25th Amendment.
Okay, but who is doing that if there's no vice president and if he's not elected? But anyways,
So
the Mike Johnson, stand-in eventually becomes president and submits to Homelander and all that stuff.
yeah, it was very all over the place. The writing was, like I say, I think it was all clearly. My thinking was as well. They probably could have done this in 4 seasons, but there's always, this is a curse of Hollywood as well. When the time is good, you want to milk it as long as you can, and so yeah, they wanted to get an extra season out of this. So I think that they just kind of forestalled a little bit. Did a little gross ham-fisted election stuff and obviously some gross scenes, and that was that up until the end. So yeah, not very good. I would still give it like a solid 7 out of 10. And most of that is being carried by the last episode.
Did they take a poll asking after season 3 if what people want to see more, and did people just answer gross sex stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just kind of the habit of, I think writers want to push the edges of things like that.
Trying to stay relevant.
Yeah. To this, the twist at the end. Yeah. I don't know have either of y'all seen Watchmen, but yeah, Sister Sage definitely gave off like an Ozymandias vibe from Watchmen.
Yeah, I have not seen it, but I'll take your word for it, there, Paul.
Well, I do kind of want to talk about, as Colby puts it, my stupid dragon show. House of the Dragon also had a season finale. I would say a pretty strong season 2 that had a very underwhelming season finale. It seems like we're kind of just went back, regression to the mean. We ended the season kind of where we began, like the big civil war is happening. But yeah, there was a lot of good episodes this year. A lot of dragon on dragon action. I don't know if any of y'all have any plans of starting it, but I would definitely recommend it.
Well, I've been trying to. It's one of those shows, and the original Game of Thrones, which, as we all know, ended after season 4, is been on my bucket list for quite some time. I think I'm actually going to rewatch The Sopranos as my next show, and then get into I'm hopefully get into Game of Thrones again. So I'll take your word for it, Paul. And like I say, we all know there's 2 seasons of House of Dragon so far, and 4 seasons of the regular Game of Thrones show. So.
Yeah, just to talk about hamming in PC stuff into shows. Yeah, House of Dragon did have that. The queen, or one of the rival queens in the show, who'd been a straight character for the entirety of the show. They gave her a lesbian scene, which it was really funny. Like it kind of came out of nowhere. I was watching with my dad, and he's like, "Are these 2 like women gonna kiss?" I'm like, "What? No. Where are you getting that from?" And then like they started making out. I was like, "Oh, I guess that's where we were going." Okay.
Yep. Well, as we all know, football season is almost here as well.
Nice.
It's been a little unfair for me because the Texans hadn't been relevant in 3 years, so we decided to become relevant again, and now I have to wait 6 months, or had to wait 6 months for that. And then Tech decides to rebuild the Southern End Zone and do the biggest stadium upgrade in history. So I've had two things that I've been really excited for, but have had nothing to show for it yet. So the preseason started, and as it always is, it's methadone for football addicts. The preseason is so. That's been going on. Stroud threw a beautiful 34-yard touchdown pass to Tank Dell, and then sat the rest of last night. So, and of course, Tech Stadium is almost done. All I have is drive-bys to go off of that one, though, thus far. So excited. Fall is definitely objectively the best season, and this is definitely part of it.
I'm excited for. I don't follow the NFL, but I think it's hilarious, and I'm all for the Texans becoming Texas's NFL team. Just because the Cowboys have not done anything for 26 years.
I'm sorry, James, if you're listening to this, but the Cowboys are going to be very mid this year. Has been my prediction. So I guess Shell as well. If you're listening to this, the Cowboys are going to be like 8-9 is my prediction.
Hey, I'm a Cowboys fan too. You don't wait. No apology to me.
Oh, yes, Paul. I'm sorry. You guys are gonna have to not win 12 games for the first time in like 4 years. So boo-hoo for me right over here. But yeah, no, it's definitely excited. And if there's any Cowboys fans watching, you're definitely welcome to hop on the Texans bandwagon. We will humbly accept you with open arms on this one.
I have not seen. Oh, I'm sorry, Paul.
Oh, I was gonna say I'm definitely not gonna get a tattoo like David.
I told David we're gonna have to do another bet this year, but I don't know what definitely not the stake. The stakes will not be as high for it, but we'll certainly see on that one. Maybe like 2 poker buy-ins or something like that. That would be about as spicy as I'll get.
I have not seen on the college field the media shut up about the Longhorns. It's just, I mean, it was always about the Longhorns, but it's so bad this year. It's not even just about Manning. Last year it was, Manning, but now it's just about Longhorns.
Yeah, they did lose a lot of talent on defense and at wide receiver, certainly, but I mean, there's reason to be hyped this year, Colby. I know, block your ears, but the Texas should be the second highest favored team to win the SEC this year. It would not surprise me if they were in the SEC championship in year 1.
Yeah.
So,
do you think Ole Miss could upset? I think Ole Miss could upset.
Yeah, I think Ole Miss is like third in my mind, just because of how many transfers they got in and everything. But yeah, like I say, if it was Texas, Georgia, I would not be surprised at all.
Well, the Aggies I know keep telling me this is their year, so they're also Cowboys fans, it seems. And I don't know, should we believe them?
I would say that the most likely scenario is Texas is at like 10-1, and A&M's at like 6-5, their last game of the year, and A&M pulls off the upset because it's in Kyle Field this year, and obviously there's going to be a lot of intrigue and interest and energy on that side of things, and so I think that would be the highlight as far as A&M season goes, unless Wegman has like an amazing sophomore season. I don't know.
Is A&M playing Bama?
I don't know. Actually, I haven't looked at the A&M schedule.
I haven't either. But I know Tech is playing Abilene Christian for the first time in years, which makes no sense. We should have been playing them honestly pretty regularly for out of conference games, I think, since they're so close.
Yeah, I know that Texas got really lucky with their conference schedule. That's another reason people are hyped on them.
They played Georgia and Michigan.
Georgia and I think it's Mississippi. I think is their big, and then obviously Oklahoma and A&M.
I think they play Michigan too.
Yeah, they get them. They get them as their that one will be interesting to see. I do think Texas should be the favorite in that one, just given how much Michigan has lost. But you never know. You never know with these things.
I'm sorry.
No,
I was going to say that reminded me. A&M opens with Notre Dame, which would that'd be kind of a fun one to watch.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. Yeah, so Texas, they're for their end of things, it's kind of front loaded. You have Michigan week 2, Oklahoma and Georgia back to back. They'll probably lose at least one of those games, but then after that they have almost a free month. Really, they play at Vanderbilt, they play home against Florida, they play at Arkansas, they play home at Kentucky, and then they play at A&M. Those last 5 games are all very winnable. Yeah. And so, Colby, I don't want to say it, but I won't say the 3-word phrase that is so popular on online. But yeah, Texas is definitely good. I won't say the word, but you know what I'm saying on this one.
On our home front, our alma mater, I'm pretty optimistic about our season, given our schedule. I think, as usual, we're going to screw up a game or two, but I think we have a pretty good chance of doing pretty well.
Yeah.
My old roommate Sean doesn't have confidence in McGuire. I still have confidence in McGuire.
Yeah,
he proved himself pretty well so far.
Yeah, well, this is going to be make or break a year. If we are mid again I think people will unfortunately put him on the hot seat already,
Yeah.
which is not great to see. I think that there's a real chance that the offense will be better. I think that's almost a certainty. But I think that we already had one of the worst defenses in the Big 12 last year, and I think we are going to actually be worse on that side of the ball. I mean, you lose Hutchings and you lose a couple of guys on your side, on that side of things, and so yeah, I mean, unless Zach Kitley gets us to early 2000s air raid offense, we start scoring 60 points a game again. I think it's going to be, unfortunately, another mid kind of year. The good news is we have one of the lighter Big 12 schedules. We don't play Utah, we don't play Kansas State, so those are big draws that we're not going to get in terms of the top tier of the conference. So, and we also don't have to play Oregon, which because of the conference realignment. So my prediction, 8-4. Is where I see us going this next year. So
what happened to our defense this year? I guess, yeah.
Well, we lost Galen Hutchings, who was probably our best producer on that side of the ball, and like I say, we're not exactly known for recruiting prowess on that side of the ball. So unless things go differently, I mean, McGuire is an offensive head coach, and so I don't foresee there being a lot of change over there, unfortunately. So, yeah, that's the biggest concern I have. But we retained a lot of talent on the offensive side of the ball. Our offensive line will be better, and there's no way we're going to have as many quarterback injuries as we have had. So,
did y'all see that picture I sent where the Baylor coaches are wearing "We Pay Our Players" shirts during practice?
Yeah, no crap, man. Like that's everyone stated the obvious there. So yeah, I am just blown away that we dropped 7 figures on the softball player here recently.
Yeah, why did we do that?
Well, it wasn't us, it was a donor. So, donor can do whatever they want, really. I just think that it's I don't know, maybe it's misplaced dollars. I don't foresee that, but who knows? Maybe we'll have a great softball year and it'll make up for us being mid in football and mid in basketball again.
Somehow sweep Oklahoma in the national championship in softball.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good stopping point. Kind of went a little long, but we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you for listening to From the Brink. Please subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. 5 stars only. This has been From the Brink. Until next time.
Bye.